Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm very pleased to have the opportunity today to stand in front of the government and respond to the government's very first complete budget. It's only taken about 12 months. And, Mr. Speaker, you'll no doubt be surprised that I don't really believe in the vision that they have put out for the province, and instead fundamentally believe that the vision of this government is going to create a tremendous amount of hardship for Albertans, for Alberta families. I think it's going to be very difficult, Mr. Speaker, and it frankly puts our long-term prosperity at risk. Alberta's had a tremendous history of allowing people to benefit from their hard work and have one of the best qualities of life in the world, Mr. Speaker, and I see that this budget clearly puts us down a road of not being able to enjoy that anymore, and that's the situation. We were hoping, Mr. Speaker, we remain very hopeful to see a very reasonable path back to balance books, a reasonable path actually to set out how they would possibly get back to balance. We were hoping to see our government turn away from an approach on the economy that can be only described as ideological, that no matter what the situation is, no matter how impractical it appears for the people that are unemployed in Alberta, for the people that are unemployed in Calgary or Leduc or Nisku, for those people, it's completely impractical, Mr. Speaker, and unpractical. And this ideological bent to do whatever it is to put forward their thoughts is simply not good for Alberta. It simply will, Mr. Speaker, as it goes from legislative to budget, it will hurt Albertans and hurt Alberta families. We were hoping for some recognition about debt, and I think most Albertans recognize that debt is not good. Debt can be good and can be necessary, and sometimes it is necessary. But for certain, Mr. Speaker, here we have a situation where the debt levels are rising to such an amount that Albertans will not be able to pay for what they want to pay for, which is ballet lessons or hockey lessons, or frankly, Mr. Speaker, the opportunity to put food on the table or have a new vehicle, as the Premier has suggested that they should do, to find a fuel-efficient vehicle. They will have to pay, Mr. Speaker, their money towards interest that this government is racking up because they have no control and no interest at all in where they can save money. We saw today, Mr. Speaker, the only cut that they brought forward was to fight forest fires, to play some number games with the budget when they know it's not even a close air of reality to what will be spent on forest fires here in Alberta. This year, Mr. Speaker, significantly less than this year. Significantly less than any amount needed in the last 10 years. Why would they do that, Mr. Speaker? Because they're hiding all the money they're putting into different ideological programs and ignoring the things that Albertans need. Fighting fires. I saw what Slave Lake Fire did to the community of Slave Lake, and I'm shocked that a member, an NDP member from Slave Lake, would not voice her opinion to Cabinet about this, seeing what happened as a result of not enough assets to take care of our communities is simply negligence. We were also hoping, Mr. Speaker, to see some way that this government was going to move forward and help families, Alberta families that are sitting around their kitchen table saying, what in the world is going on with this government? We've had 100,000 job losses. There's over 100,000 people in Alberta that are out of work. And what's the government's answer? A $5,000 job subsidy plan that didn't create any jobs whatsoever except the ministers. Of course, Mr. Speaker, in January, they bragged about that program being one of the 3 great achievements of this NDP government in the 8 months previously. And what did they do after that great achievement came out in the news? They cancelled the program, Mr. Speaker, because they had nothing to brag about. Nothing. And that's what this job plan that this NDP government has brought in. It's nothing. Nothing to help Albertans. They call it a jobs plan. I call it a no jobs plan whatsoever. The amount of debt they've racked up, $58 billion, and the insignificant, paltry sum they put towards any type of job creation program should be absolutely embarrassing. And Mr. Speaker, while the members are making fun on the other side, people are losing their jobs and they don't have enough money, and what happens? They're still laughing. Shame. This is a serious issue. People cannot afford, even though you have these plush jobs where you make hundreds of thousands of dollars per year on the backs of taxpayers, people are unemployed in this province. People cannot find jobs.
families.
It's embarrassing that you would take that so trivial as to laugh. Totally embarrassing. In our belief, Mr. Speaker, this budget simply fails Albertans completely. And it racks up more debt than we've ever seen. It has the biggest deficit this province will ever see as long as the NDP leave quickly. Mr. Speaker, this is not helping Alberta families. This is not helping the mums and dads that want a better quality of life for their kids. The future is Alberta. The future in Canada is Alberta families. And we need to support those families, whether it's when they don't have a job, so we fight with the federal government and make sure that they cover people that can't be covered in the current program, the current federal program on EI. They should stand up. I can't even hear them. And I'm sitting across from them. Stand up and talk to the federal government about supporting the jobs in Nisku, about supporting the families in Nisku and Leduc that don't have a job.
Hear, hear.
What about all those families that can't get EI? You ever think about that? There's a lot of people, business owners, that have closed their business. People that are unemployed because they don't have enough weeks and don't qualify because this federal government is so out of touch with Albertans.
Agreed.
It's time this NDP government woke up and supported the families in Alberta with real job creation programs, not taxes that frankly will have to be paid by Alberta's families, by Alberta's children and mums and dads. They will do without. Because you have these grandiose schemes of how you're going to fix GHG emissions, although we're less than any state in the United States, less than any state in the United States. It's embarrassing that you would think that we in Alberta can lead the world so significantly that we're going to damage our own economy. Now, I have no problem, and I agree with you. We need to do something about climate change. We need to do something lockstep with the rest of the world, certainly with North America. But we need to do it together. Because what you're doing is you're wrecking our economy to benefit nobody because we're such an insignificant amount of GHG emissions compared to anywhere else in North America. Now, I know, Mr. Speaker, that they're not really listening to me except when they laugh. And I find that troubling because I don't think unemployment is a laughing matter for the families that are unemployed.
Agreed.
Mr. Speaker, but I do want to start with the numbers. Last week, we released a 10-point plan. You know, we were trying to help the government. We've been trying for a year to help this government. They reject our help. But, Mr. Speaker, we put forward a 10-point plan of practical recommendations to save Alberta's future, to make sure that we don't have these huge interest payments. $2 billion in 3 years we'll be paying in interest. $2 billion. Now, I've never had $1 billion. I don't think anybody in this place has had $1 billion. But we're going to have to pay back $1 billion, $2 billion. By the time this government's done, I would say it's going to be a lot more. But let's just deal with what we know. $2 billion. That's $58,000 for every household in Alberta. $58,000 is what you just put on the mortgages. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, it wasn't you that did that. It was them that did that. But, Mr. Speaker, that $58,000 is added to the mortgage. And when you consider how much houses have fallen in value in Alberta, what does this mean, this extra $58,000? When you consider how much the housing prices have fallen in this province. Albertans are taking a big hit from this government to fulfill their ideological purposes that, frankly, are not supporting Alberta families. Now, Mr. Speaker, that 10-point plan put forward some practical solutions. And I was really hoping, especially in relation to the WCB holiday, that this government would take us up on it. It was simple. Ideas on how to save $2 billion without losing one job. The WCB surplus rate now is far beyond what they're required to hold in their bank account. Billions of dollars sitting in a bank account, doing nothing that you have access to, that the government has access to, and yet you ignore our proposal. When that $1.5 to $2 billion could help Alberta families stay employed. It was overtaxation. Businesses in Alberta paid it. We're suggesting, new hires, when you hire a new employee, $1 for a year you pay for WCB. That's a good idea. I think employers would like that. It's their money anyways. It encourages them to hire people. but not even a whisper of saying, yeah, we'll look at that. How about that? That was a good idea. $2 billion of savings and not one penny saved. Not one option taken up. Now, Mr. Speaker, it's clear I'm a fiscal conservative. My track record is clear. I believe that we should be better managers for Alberta families, because the future is Alberta families. And it's their money. It's not yours. It's not mine. It's not anybody's in this house unless we pay taxes. Some of us do, but it's a paltry sum compared to what Alberta families put in. And we need to move towards a path of sustainability and balanced books, Mr. Speaker. Agreed. We need to turn around because we're going the wrong way. And it's a roadmap. And you can see that way is debt, interest payments, low quality of life, and this way is balanced books, Mr. Speaker. Instead of interest payments on hospitals, on all this debt we borrow, on all these buildings we do, which are necessary, let's just save a little bit, Mr. Speaker, so we don't have debt, so we don't have interest payments. Because when we start paying interest, those payments can't be made to schools. They can't hire teachers because there's not an indefinite amount of money, Mr. Speaker. We saw a credit downgrade. Did anybody notice a credit downgrade in this place, Mr. Speaker? I noticed it. I've never seen a credit downgrade in 24 hours before after a budget. That was pretty impressive. I would say the NDP set a record on that, Mr. Speaker. I've never seen that before. A full point down. Full point, Mr. Speaker. And what did it mean to the Minister of Finance? That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. That's not going to affect anything. Well, Mr. Speaker, it does affect things. When you have good credit, you get to borrow at a cheaper rate, which means that interest payments don't go towards those things we want and need. I want nurses. I want more teachers in Alberta. We deserve it. Alberta deserves it because we've worked hard for it. I don't want to pay interest for nothing to big banks somewhere else. Sometimes I hear, it's just interest, it's just interest. It's 0%, 0.5. It's $2 billion a year, $58,000 per household. $2,000 just to pay interest to every household. Every household in Alberta, a million of them, have to pay $2,000 a year starting in 3 years just to pay for the interest payments at the low interest rates we get. Those payments will go up. I find it shocking that nobody seems to care over there. Along with the carbon tax, that's $3,000 that you're taking out when Albertans are unemployed, when Albertans are hurting, when they don't even know if they're going to have a job tomorrow, when they're going to the food bank because demand for food bank has doubled. These are real issues. I've worked soup kitchens. I've worked for nonprofits. Nobody in this place has a monopoly on caring for other people. We just think we get at it a different way. I'm just suggesting that maybe in the future and maybe in the past, look at some of our proposals. They're proposals that are good for Alberta. Maybe they're not perfect, but work with us. We're here to help, and we're getting very nervous at the direction you're going. And frankly, Albertans are, and you all know that. Because I hear it everywhere. I drive this province constantly, and I hear it in Tim Hortons. I hear it everywhere. Albertans are not pleased with the direction you're going, and I'm suggesting this. Just consider the opposition proposals. Yes, even from the third party and the fourth and the fifth. Consider our ideas. We were elected by Albertans. We represent Albertans. Maybe not the same ones as you, but we do. And we're all in this together, and we need to work together to make Alberta better in the future and presently. And we can't do that if you stick your head in the sand and don't listen. If you think you put the blinders on, you think you know everything. You don't. Neither do we. But working together for Albertans, we can come up with some good ideas that will save Alberta the future, which is so important. One idea, Mr. Speaker, was a hiring freeze. We have 200,000 civil servants, and we're not suggesting a hiring freeze for all civil servants, but we have 26,000 managers, or 26,000 bureaucrats that work straight for the government, and about 5,500 managers. Now, those aren't essential services. Why don't we just freeze those salaries right now and freeze the hiring right now? And just say, you know what, if through attrition, which is 8 to 10% in all these departments, a year, 8 to 10% of the people turnover, they either retire or they quit and move. Why not just say for, a year or 2 years, we're not going to hire any more people in those positions. But what we will do is we'll hire from within. We'll reorganize from within. There'll be a mandate for the departments to reorganize instead of hiring new people. And within 2 years, we're going to be at the same level, in essence, as British Columbia. Mr. Speaker, I don't know if you know this, but can you imagine that Alberta is 20% more expensive than British Columbia? We have relatively the same population, and that's on the population base, Mr. Speaker. We spend about $10,800 per person for government services. It's going up. It's going way up. The friendly giant would say way, way up. BC can do it for $8,800. Now, I wouldn't call BC, British Columbia, the most capitalistic free market place in Canada. In fact, I think most Canadians would agree that it's not that. But how in the world can they have the same constitutional obligations, the same obligations from their people, and yet do it 20% less expensive? Well, I'll tell you, Mr. Speaker, it's because we operate the most expensive government in Canada. And these folks over here, the NDP government, are making it much more expensive. How can you look at, they talk about looking at empirical evidence and looking at facts, Mr. Speaker. Well, the facts clearly indicate that the NDP are going the wrong direction.
Agreed.
The facts clearly indicate that we have the most expensive government in Canada, and it's getting way, way more expensive. And who's paying for it, Mr. Speaker?
Taxpayers.
Alberta's families. They're paying for it through the unemployment line, through the food bank. They're paying for it, and they're going to continue to pay for it. 4 years, Mr. Speaker, this NDP government's going to cost us a lot more than 4 years. It's going to cost Albertans a lot of quality of life. And the biggest issue is they're not even considering other options or even to take any input from anybody else in this chamber. That, Mr. Speaker, is shameful. Absolutely shameful. Well, I think those things would be a good first step, just a wage freeze and a hiring freeze. And Mr. Speaker, there's no question that we need more nurses, we need more doctors, we need more hospitals, we need better services. I want that. I really want that. I want our government service to be the best in the world, and it's not. I want our government service to be competitive. I don't want it to be the cheapest, because I don't think that works well. I want it to give a return on investment to Albertans. I want to be proud of it. I'm proud of our nurses. I'm proud of our teachers. I'm proud that our teachers could operate, frankly, under that government for so long and be effective. I mean, we did go from #1 in the world in education to number 5 or 6 in Canada, so they didn't do that good of a job. In fact, well, I won't get into that right now. I'll wait until after May. But I'm surprised our teachers and nurses did as well as they did under that government's watch. I'm shocked that they feel at all like they want to go into work under this government's watch. Truly. Yes, there would be some tough decisions, Mr. Speaker. There's no question. There always has to be tough decisions when you decide who gets the priority. But we also agree, Mr. Speaker, that there would be some programs that would have to be reviewed or reformed. But we need to make those decisions today, Mr. Speaker, because we're going so far down that way, and we need to go that way, that it's going to take a lot longer to get there. Now, everybody knows what it's like to get in a car and go on a road trip. And I will assure you, Mr. Speaker, that that road trip we're going on right now, it's going to cost a lot.
Kids are screaming on the back.
Billions upon billions upon billions. And you know, Mr. Speaker, everybody says billions like it doesn't matter. It does matter. Every single penny of that $1 billion has to be made up by somebody. And it's not going to be made up by these folks because, frankly, they don't know what they're doing. It's going to be made up of Alberta families that pay taxes, that work hard, that want a better lifestyle, that want that money not to go towards government bureaucrats and, frankly, this NDP government. They want it to go to the things their children want and need, and they want and need: a holiday, dance recitals, those things that everyday people want, Mr. Speaker. That's what we're here for. We're not here for ideological reasons. We're here to serve the people of Alberta. And, Mr. Speaker, I can't say it enough. I'm not here for big banks. Now, I will never be here for big banks.
Not for big oil companies.
I'm not here for big oil either, Mr. Speaker. I work for Albertans. Proud of it. So when people bring up companies in my riding, I'm okay with that. Because I don't work for the companies in my riding, Mr. Speaker. I've made it clear every single year, every single day that I've worked for the people of Alberta. And I've done that for more than 10 years now. I don't work for them, Mr. Speaker. I don't work for big oil. I work for the people of Alberta. And I'm proud of it. What we're seeing from this NDP government is a failure to recognize this fiscal reality. Other jurisdictions have. In fact, Manitoba recognized it last night in a big way. And Mr. Speaker, it's so obvious. I said they don't know what they're doing, but I don't want to criticize, and I don't like throwing insults, Mr. Speaker. I really want to work with them, and I find some of this discussion today I'm not very happy about it, Mr. Speaker. I don't think that's helpful. I think we're here together to serve Albertans, and I think we should do it in a respectful manner. But just 5 months, Mr. Speaker. This government came in and they said, we're going to change the cap. Debt to GDP ratio to borrow. We're going to change the cap. It's not going to be 15%. It's not going to be 3% or whatever the former government did. It's going to be 15%. We're going to raise it because you know what? We're going to raise it just so we have more borrowing capacity, so we can borrow things for important programs. Well, Mr. Speaker, 5 months later, they got rid of the cap. So why was it so important 5 months ago to set a cap at 15%? But today, the cap is unlimited. You won. You have an NDP government. You can borrow all the money you want.
To infinity and beyond.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, to infinity and beyond. And frankly, that's scary.
Agreed.
$300 billion, Mr. Speaker, $300 billion. Let me tell you where that number comes from. It comes from the start, the NDP government in Ontario, with the Liberals finishing it off. Today, that's what Ontario owes, $300 billion. That's the path you're going on. Mr. Speaker, do you know how much money that is per month in interest? $1 billion. I feel like putting my, but $1 billion, Mr. Speaker. That's a lot of money.
Every month.
That's $1,000 for every household in Alberta. If it was in Alberta, $1,000 for every household in Alberta per month just to go towards paying interest payments. That's where we're going, Mr. Speaker. I see it. It's right over there. It's not very far away. And truly, Mr. Speaker, we need to come closer over here. We need to start. And the fact that they would, after 5 months, change their own law because they don't want to break it, after they just made the law, clearly indicates that they don't know what they're doing. And now they say, let's go to infinity and beyond on borrowing capacity. Let's borrow as much as we need, because you know what? It's just paperwork. It's not paperwork, Mr. Speaker. First comes higher interest costs. Then comes more unemployment. Then guess what businesses do, Mr. Speaker? They move. That's what they do. That's what they're doing in Ontario. When you have hydro costs that are outrageous, you have to move because you're not competitive. And I'm going to tell you, Mr. Speaker, based upon all of my meetings with every single company in Alberta that deals with electricity, 200, 300%. And I'm not fear-mongering. I'm telling you what the experts are telling me. Now, Mr. Speaker, if you're manufacturing things in Alberta and your electricity input costs go up 300% when you're already paying thousands of dollars to make these products and sell them in Alberta or elsewhere, guess what you're going to do? You're going to move. And Mr. Speaker, they can say, oh, this is just going to be passed on. It's going to be recycled. This carbon tax is going to be recycled in the economy. Yeah. Let's take it. Let's make the math really simple. Let's take $3 billion and divide it by how many households there are in Alberta. 1 million households. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'm no genius in math, but I can tell you that's $3,000. Right? It's pretty shocking, Mr. Speaker, when you think about it. Now, the target they released to get our finances back to black, I just wanted to point this out, is frankly unrealistic. And it must be nice to be able to make plans that you're not going to participate in enforcing. 2024, does this government really think, based upon the track they're going, because they're way down there, that track's going to bring them back to any kind of power or any kind of election? You think they're going to be back here, Mr. Speaker? It's nice to pass on jobs to other people. Well, that's what they're doing. Because they have no intention of doing anything but putting in their ideological positions, the carbon tax, the levies, the GHG, putting coal out, all these 6,000, 7,000 people out of work. People, by the way, Mr. Speaker, I don't know if you know it, but I found out that coal workers make about $92,000 a year. Those are good jobs. 6,000, 7,000 Albertans be unemployed with one stroke of the pen from this government?
Union jobs.
Wow. Talk about heartless, Mr. Speaker. Now, I'm hoping that after my great speech today, Mr. Speaker, and after all of the members of the Wildrose Caucus have an opportunity to address the NDP government today, I'm hoping that they'll listen to us. And they'll say, you know what, I'm going to listen from now on. I'm going to listen the next time the Wildrose comes forward with a 12-point job action plan. Yes, that's right, Mr. Speaker. We also did that about a month ago. We came up with 12 great common sense ideas to create jobs in Alberta. How many of those ideas were picked up by the government? One. Now, I have to give them a compliment. Here you go. This is it. I do compliment them for reducing the small business tax from 3% to 2%. See, Mr. Speaker, I can say nice things too. And I will. When I see some good things from this government, I'm going to say there's good things. That was a good thing. That creates employment. It's unfortunate, though, that this carbon tax is going to wipe out by at least 10 times anything that small business cut would have done.
True.
It's going to, Mr. Speaker. $3 billion compared to, I believe, $150 million is what 1 point off will do. There's no comparison. Businesses are going to be paying more. So this small business tax cut, frankly, just smoke and mirrors. That's all it is. Just trying to change the channel, try to appear balanced. They're not balanced, Mr. Speaker. This is an ideological agenda to bring in tax, and more tax. And I find that troubling because ultimately, Albertans pay that. And you know, I can understand when you need to make changes and you need to modify your position on certain things that you have to bring in some taxes. Or I, for myself, Mr. Speaker, I don't know if you know it, but I'm not going to raise your taxes. I don't like taxes.
I've heard that.
Because somebody has to pay for those taxes, and it's not these folks over here. It's Alberta families. It's mums and dads. The kids will go without, Mr. Speaker. We are set to be $58 billion in debt by the time of the next election. $2 billion price tag per year just to cover the interest payments. That, to me, is outrageous, especially for a population of 4 million people. Friends, this means, Mr. Speaker, so just to equate it into what it means, and I'm hoping all the NDP government members are listening no matter where they are, what this means, Mr. Speaker, is now that in 2 years, 3 years, interest payments will be the largest government payment except for health, which is $20 billion, education and social services. Whoa. What does that mean, Mr. Speaker? Well, it means that more money will go towards interest payments than justice, keeping criminals off the street. More money will go towards interest payments. Now, Mr. Speaker, I would like more money to go to the justice in this province, to make sure we keep criminals off our streets, to make sure that, you know what, legal aid has the opportunity to represent those people that deserve to be represented. Because people deserve a lawyer. People deserve justice, fair treatment, the rule of law, democracy, which, as you know, Mr. Speaker, I love democracy. Seniors. You know, Mr. Speaker, seniors brought me here, in part. Agriculture. Spending more money on interest payments than we are on seniors and agriculture.
Wow. Shame.
That's so shameful, Mr. Speaker. And all we need to do is take a few pennies out of every dollar this government spends. A few pennies. We're spending more money in 3 years on interest payments than seniors. Doesn't that make you shocked? It shocked me, Mr. Speaker, when I crunched the numbers. Agriculture, our second largest industry, we're going to be paying more on interest payments than we do for all of the agricultural department in Alberta?
Wow.
Now, Mr. Speaker, infrastructure department, more money than the infrastructure department. Not more money than they invest, but more money than it costs for them to manage that. More money for interest payments than transportation. The entire transport department that deals with every road, every roadway, everything to deal with transportation in this province, we're spending more money on interest payments. And all the government has to do is find a couple of cents in every dollar. I think all of us can do that. I'm prepared to do that. Are you?
Albertans want us to do it.
Albertans want us to do that. They need us to do that. Credit downgrades are coming. Oops, sorry, Mr. Speaker, I missed that by 3 days. I predicted it 3 months ago. but more are coming. This is not the end of it, folks. More credit downgrades are coming. Interest payments will be higher. They have never been lower than they are today.
Agreed.
As long as I've been alive, and I remember paying 18%, Mr. Speaker, back in the 80s. I remember what the Trudeau Liberal government did to Alberta. It's doing it again, it's just different first name. And you guys are going along for the ride. It's time to stand up for Alberta families. It's time to fight for Albertans.
You're here.
I cannot believe that nobody sees the interest payments as a challenge on that side. Just when our economy needed to boost, Mr. Speaker, what did we find the NDP government did? Raise taxes on everything. To everybody, Mr. Speaker. And you know, I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to skip ahead, Mr. Speaker. I only planned to talk for 90 minutes today. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the $3 billion carbon tax, because I keep hearing it and having people talk about the $3 billion carbon tax. And, you know, they say $500. Oh, it's just going to cost $500. Well, I don't think $500 is just. I think $500 is a lot of money, Mr. Speaker. $3 billion is a lot of money. But when you divide that $3 billion, as I said earlier, by a million homes, you come up with $3,000, Mr. Speaker. Now, that's per year. So that is what the typical family, Mr. Speaker, will be paying, less large emitters, which is about, I think, $600 to $750 million of that $3 billion. But they talk about, you know, you're going to get a full rebate, Mr. Speaker. Well, full in this case does not mean this full amount you paid in. What full means, Mr. Speaker, is $300. Now, that's per individual, but you know, if you're a couple, you can have 500. If you're roommates, you can get 6, but that's a little bit of a penalty on being married. And of course, Mr. Speaker, if you have kids, you get a $35 or so, up to a maximum. But Mr. Speaker, they haven't even costed how much it's going to cost for families on the average. For everything that's transported, for instance, because you know, Mr. Speaker, when you raise gas taxes, and we're going to see 11 cents different from a year ago than today through this government, 11-cent increase just from this government. And when you look at that, Mr. Speaker, and you're a trucking company, and I've talked to some trucking companies, they say 5% at least. My rates are going up 5%. Why? Because guess what, folks? The input cost for fuel is a huge cost for trucking. And how many things come to Alberta without using trucks? Well, you're right. Things that come by plane, which use a lot more fuel and cost a lot more. Everything coming to Alberta will go up 5% or pretty darn close. That's the reality. You didn't consider that. You didn't consider the cost of food going up, the cost of shelter going up, and now you're adding more taxes. Increased taxes to Calgary. They're not happy. They're not. And I'm not talking about the property taxes that you're going to put on the backs of all Calgarians and Edmontonians and everybody that lives in a house. I'm talking about the fuel costs. Fuel costs for a fleet in Calgary, I heard this morning, could be $6 or $7 million just for your carbon tax to the city of Calgary. And are they getting a rebate? Are they getting any help from this government? No. Because this government expects Calgarians to pay for their ideological agenda. Wow. That's not right. It's wrong. So a full rebate, Mr. Speaker, does not come anywhere close to the $1,000 per family. And we're actually, by basically calculating it grossly on the big numbers, Mr. Speaker, it comes out to $3,000 a family. So by saying at least $1,000, we are not out to lunch at all. I don't know where the government thinks the other $2,500 per family is coming from, because the number $3 billion is the number. We know that this is going to cost families a lot of money, and for those who make under $50,000 and qualify, the tax rebate program, it's not a levy, it's a tax, folks. The tax rebate program completely ignores the impact of higher power prices, higher power bills, and skyrocketing costs to consumer goods. I'm not fear-mongering. Those are the facts, Mr. Speaker. You cannot tax your way into prosperity. You cannot do that. You can't tax your way to a situation where you have better jobs, except for these folks. Mr. Speaker, this tax is not a fair tax, because right now it's going far beyond what our obligation is as world citizens to the world, far beyond what our obligation is as Canadian citizens, as Alberta citizens. It goes too far. Should something be done? Yes. Should this be done? Not now. Don't punish us when we're down on the ground. Don't kick us when we're down. But this government seems to think that's the proper motive to do and the proper thing to do. And Mr. Speaker, you know, I've heard time and time again, oh, it's a levy tax. Well, that's not a levy, it's a tax, Mr. Speaker. And you know, you can clearly put lipstick on a pig, but you still have a pig. And you can put lipstick on a carbon tax, and you still have a pig. Mr. Speaker, you can dress this carbon tax up as friendly and fun as you want, but it's still tax, and it's not a carbon tax because it's not revenue neutral. So, Mr. Speaker, I say this, you put a lipstick on a carbon tax, you can dress it up, and all you have is a PST in disguise.
Agreed.
That's what this is. And you can come back later, as you have, and say, oh, no, wait, we're spending it on infrastructure. Well, you haven't even named what it is. That's not a carbon tax. Carbon tax is revenue neutral. Everybody knows that, except for it's revenue neutral. And you can put lipstick on it, but this carbon tax is not revenue neutral. It's just a tax grab. It's just a cash cow grab. It's just the government looking to make excuses to get more money into their pockets from Alberta families so they can spend it on their pet projects. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. When people are on an unemployment line, when people are on the soup line, when the food banks demand has doubled, what do these people say? Oh, green infrastructure. I think people are a little bit more concerned about putting food on the table for their kids, to be able to afford hockey for their kids, to go on that holiday once a week for their family. That's what they care about right now. We're already the greenest, most environmentally sound province in Canada. We do oil sands and oil and gas extraction better than anybody else in the world. And I invite you to my home, like I did the Liberal caucus in Ottawa and the NDP caucus. And guess how many of them came? 0. Because you don't want to see the truth. What you want to see is your ideological agenda be enforced and executed on the backs of Alberta families because you think you have the answer while people are on unemployment lines and soup lines. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Shame.
Ashamed of yourself for backing up a cabinet that doesn't understand the realities of what's going on in Alberta right now. Now, Mr. Speaker, I did go through half my speech by putting the pages forward, and I know you're getting a little tired of me because I can tell. I have been watching you for a while, Mr. Speaker. You're not. Okay, good. I'll keep going then. Do you mind if I flip back a couple of pages? But, Mr. Speaker, the other thing that I'm so concerned about is coal. Coal. Coal is, we have 200 years of coal here in Alberta. I love coal. And what does this transition money do for the coal plants that are being shut down, for the communities that are going to be shut down, for the families that are going to be out of work? 7,000 jobs gone like that. I don't think that's the right way to go. We have told these coal companies to come into Alberta and to set up shop here. We have had Albertans working for those companies and saying, listen, we're going to close them down gradually. We're going to have some clean coal technology, which I think is the way to go. New technology, I think, solves the problem, and I frankly think this government should invest in some of that. Look at what's happening in Saskatchewan. We have clean coal technology there that's almost as close as clean burning natural gas. The United States, I had an opportunity to talk to somebody from the US the other day, and they told me they had lots of plants that are very close to natural gas. So why are you closing it down when it's already getting cleaner? It's because you're ideological. It's because you think you have to make yourself feel better or to make those NDP friends of yours from right across this country feel wonderful. It doesn't make Albertans feel wonderful. It doesn't make Albertans feel wonderful. And I hear from the other side some chirping about evidence. Well, I'm happy to sit down and go through the evidence with any of you. I'm happy to talk to you and talk to the coal companies in Alberta and the families that are going to be out of work. I'm happy to hear that. Happy to do that.
We didn't heckle your speech.
But you know what, Mr. Speaker, there's no doubt that it is a large amount of money. And you'll notice, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the details, that most of the money is going to be paid after they're gone, after Albertans have done the big boot. And that will happen. And that's what happens to all ideological governments. Ask Bob Ray.
That's Selinger.
Ask Selinger. I'm concerned that you don't want to govern, that you just want to impose your ideological agenda. And I heard from the third party, and I thought it was very funny, and I have to say that most of Sollinger's NDP workers will probably come to Alberta because there's job openings here.
Half of them are already here.
In fact, 247 new civil servants were hired by this government over the last 11 months, just since 60, 70, 80, 90, 100,000 Albertans are unemployed. You add more to the public sector? Well, guess what? Guess what, guys? People? Albertans are moving out of Alberta. We have a net migration out of Alberta. And it's not the low oil price, Mr. Speaker, because they're going to Saskatchewan and BC to work in the oil sector, where they don't have an NDP government. That's where it is, Mr. Speaker. So I have to say, and I know they're convinced by my arguments, I know they're going to turn around, but $196 million in transition funding for the coal industry, Mr. Speaker, in those communities doesn't even come close to covering the wages or the social costs. Not even close.
Nowhere.
And these people relied on this government, the previous government, and we are obligated to follow through with previous governments, unfortunately, and the contractual obligations you create for us. I think you should have done it differently. I think it's a transitional thing, and we need to do things in step with the rest of Canada, with the rest of North America, because we are such an insignificant amount of GHG emissions compared to the rest of North America. It's true. Now, Madam Speaker, I see there's been a change. Wildrose believes in a different vision, a vision that is much bigger and, frankly, longer term, a vision where we see the Heritage Fund and the interest from, not to the Heritage Fund or to payments, but from, supports those deficits we might need in the future when oil prices go down. I see a vision that is bright and beautiful, where people are employed and they have a selection of jobs they want, where they get training support from the government for new jobs and new opportunities, where the government supports AHS workers so AHS workers want to come to work, where they don't take 4 months off because they're sick and tired of AHS or the people within it. I know, I sat there for 4 months. It was terrible. And AHS workers don't like AHS. They're not happy with the status quo and how things are. I'm not either, and I sure hope you aren't. But today I heard the Minister of Health support the status quo on AHS when the Premier, the Minister of Education, the Minister of Economic Development, all for years have been saying AHS is broken, we have to fix it. They get into power, AHS perfect, we're going to protect it. That's not what people voted for. You said they voted for health care and they voted for you. Well, then do something about it. We have some of the longest wait times in Canada, and we spend more money on our health care than anybody else in Canada. Folks, it doesn't match. Something's wrong with AHS when people don't want to come into work. We want public servants to want to work for us, to be proud to work for Albertans, because we're proud of them when they give Albertans a good return on investment, when they want to work, when they're willing to work, and when they show up for work. But Madam Speaker, we're just looking for a few pennies. 3 cents on every dollar, 4 cents on every dollar if we can find it. No job losses. Why can't we see this government even consider that? Ideological, Madam Speaker. They're too set on their agenda to destroy this province. And I just don't understand, Mr. Speaker, when I talk to families, when I talk to Albertans, they tell me that they're sitting around their kitchen table. They're going through their budgets. When Dad got laid off, they have to make changes. Mom's still working, she has to get a second job. They have to make changes in their own life. Why in the world wouldn't we think we have to make changes in the public service? 200,000 workers in Alberta that are making, on average, $80,000 to $100,000, Madam Speaker. The cost is, I think, $102,000 per public servant. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I'm pretty positive I read that a few months ago. Why would we not say, let's just find some efficiencies when people quit or when people move out of the province, or let's just not rehire them for now until our province starts growing again instead of people moving out, people moving in. It would help morale, Madam Speaker. It would. And people that don't know what they're talking about should go check out AHS. I sat there for a long time, Madam Speaker, and watched firsthand, and I saw, and I had people come to me and tell me that morale is terrible. I mean, I heard somebody on the other side obviously went for a new job because they weren't happy where they were. It happens, Madam Speaker, and that's the way it works. Every family in Alberta is forced to make these decisions. Why does this government think they don't have to do it for them? They are here for the people of Alberta, not for themselves. So work for the people of Alberta, not for yourselves. Should I finish? Well, Mr. Speaker, I received a tug on my coattails telling me it's probably time. And I don't blame you, because I'm not going to change my speech much. I do believe that government can do better than what this government's doing. I believe government can do better than what the previous government did. That's why I got involved in politics. Thank you for the clap from the NDP. I do believe government can do better, and I don't think we should ever stop doing better. Albertans expect us to do better. Alberta will get through this, Madam Speaker, but it's going to cost a lot. It's going to hurt a lot. And I don't want to see any more pain out there. I want to support Alberta families. I want to help Albertans. I commit to you, Madam Speaker, today. I commit that the Wildrose opposition, our party, will not stop. We will fight every single day for the priorities of Albertans. Agreed. To keep their tax bill low, to make sure they get all the services from healthcare, from education, from social services, from justice, from the infrastructure, from transport, from all those things that these people on the other side laugh about and think is a joke.
Shame.
The $50 billion, Madam Speaker, that they take out of the pockets of taxpayers without any interest in finding efficiencies. I promise, Wildrose will stand up and fight for the priorities of Albertans every single day throughout Alberta.
That's right.
We won't stop. And I know you're going to be surprised with this, Madam Speaker, as everybody on the other side is going to be surprised, but I'm not going to support this budget. Wildrose will not support a budget that puts pain on the people of Alberta and keeps them unemployed. We will support programs that keep people working, that invest in the things they need. But, Madam Speaker, this government is not doing that. That's why, in 3 years, we will work hard to win the hearts and minds of Albertans so that they will put a real conservative, fiscal conservative government in power in Alberta. Thank you.